Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another one of our wonderful book events here. Without further ado, can I welcome to the stage your host for the evening, Jamie Fewery, with Sara Davies.
Good evening, everyone. I never know whether to lean in or stay away from these things. Welcome to Tring Bookshop event. Tonight we're really pleased and privileged to be joined by Sara Davies, MBE.
Oh yes, give us the proper title. What? And you didn't curtsy on the way up there.
Sorry about that.
No. But I watch these,
It's
you know.
very unprofessional of me. So you will all know Sara from Dragon's Den primarily. Strictly's a very good dancer, but also the reason we're here tonight is to talk about business and this new book that has come out, The 6 Minute Entrepreneur. I've been reading it over the past few days, and I work in business marketing, so I spend a lot of time thinking about business, writing about business, talking about business, and it's full of great advice. I think so many business books that you come across, I used to work in business publishing as well, are pitched at such a level that there's nothing practical about them. There's nothing you can really learn if you want to start a business and grow a business. And this is so great because it's got lots of advice, but also homework, which I thought was interesting. So every single tip in there.
Yes, be warned. You have a year's worth of homework in your hands now.
So there's a lot of tasks going there, and we get the benefit of some brilliant business experience from one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. So I think to kick off, it's probably worth talking about your take on the book, why you wrote it, why now, and where all this advice came from.
So, before I kick off talking, what would be great to know is an understanding from you lot, because there's 52 lessons in there. I can pick whichever ones we want to talk about, and it's understanding in the room, are people more business focused, or are they people who aren't business but just hoping to take life advice away from this? So give us a show of hands, those of you who are in business or entrepreneurs or have a business mindset and who are interested that, a higher proportion than I was expecting. So by default, does that mean that the rest of you have just turned up because I'm an awesome dragon? Oh, you loved me dancing on Strictly and you thought I might show you how to foxtrot. That was you, wasn't it? Yes, it was. I saw the glimmer in your eye. Right, okay, that's brilliant. That gives me a good understanding. Well, so should I let you into a secret on? Well, it's not really a secret, but I suppose it is because I hadn't told anybody. On why I did the book, okay? So, I wrote my autobiography 3 years ago, and my whole driver for wanting to write an autobiography is when I was little, not that little, not quite as little as you, son, when I was in my early 20s, when I was first starting out in business, I just wanted to learn anything from anybody who would teach you anything, okay? And I read every business person's autobiography going, right? And I remember I read all the Dragons because I bloody love Dragon's Den. It was my favourite TV show, right? And I'm not just saying that. So I read all these people's business autobiographies. And do you know what? I can't really remember what any of them said. I'm sure I took stuff away from them at the time. But there is one that always stuck in my mind, right? And it was Duncan Bannatyne's. And I remember reading that book. And it wasn't that he said anything that was really earth-shattering. And he didn't impart any wisdom that really made me think, okay, I'm going to be a hugely successful entrepreneur because I've learned this from Duncan Bannatyne. It was a feeling that I got. And I read his book and I thought, do you know what? There's nothing special about him. He's not Brains of Britain. Do not write this on Twitter, for God's sake. That'll be my career in tatters, right? But I thought, he's not Brains of Britain. He hasn't grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth. There's no opportunity he's had in life that anybody else couldn't have. But he's been hugely successful. And if he can do it, there's no goddamn reason I can as well. And that's how he made me feel. And his book was actually called Anyone Can Make It, because he was quite humble like that. And he was just saying, now it's special about me. If I can do it, you can do it. And I felt so empowered. And that feeling had a huge impact on me in my early 20s. And it really stuck with me. And I remember thinking, you know, as a woman in her early 20s starting out in business, I wish there was other women like this that I could look up to. And there wasn't, but there was other men that I looked up to. And so I always thought one of my life ambitions, I had 3 big goals in life. And one of them was that I wanted to pass on for other people, other women especially, what Duncan had done to me. I wanted to be that role model. So that's why I wrote the autobiography. And if any of you have read that autobiography, and if not, I know there's a really awesome bookshop next door that probably has a few copies. I bloody hope you do. Now I've teed you up. Or you can listen to my dulcet tones for 9 hours. Yeah. But I mean, I wanted that, and people who read it, they have the same reaction to it that I did to Duncan's. So anyway, so I wrote the autobiography. Brilliant, right? Fast forward a couple of years. Now, I'm a published author. Now, I'm a Sunday Times best-selling published author, right? Who would have thought it? Yeah, I know. And I don't consider myself an author, because actually I didn't write that book. I'll be really honest. I don't like this whole thing of people, they always say ghost writers, okay? Well, I don't like my writer to be a ghost. She's not a ghost. She's a wonderful woman called Alex Hemmensley, right? I'll tell you now, if I'd written that book, it would be the size of the Bible, and you would have got bored at page 30. Because if I can say it in 10 words or I can say it in 100, I'm saying it in 100, right? So I told the story, and then she condensed it down into a manageable 360-odd pages, right? And it was a brilliant kind of team effort. And so she's brilliant at summarising the points I really want to make. So anyway, now, as a Sunday Times best-selling author, I get published to go all over the world and tell people my stories. And what I used to do is, they'd hire me to come and stand on a stage, and I'd get either 20 minutes, or if I was really pushing my luck, I'd get like 45 minutes, and I'd stand up there, take a massive deep breath in, and try and regurgitate all 9 hours of that content in 45 minutes. And I tell you what, everybody enjoyed it, but they were exhausted by the time they walked out the door. Anyway, one day I got introduced to this amazing guy who was like a speechwriter. And I asked him if he could come along and watch some of my corporate talks and give me some feedback on how I could improve. Because I always want to get better. It's one of my big things. You'll read about it in the book. Growth mindset. Always want, even though I knew I was doing a good job of them speeches because people loved it and I kept getting rebooked, I wanted to do an even better job. And he said, Sarah, it's too much. You're giving people, you're bombarding them with too much information. It's too much to take in. So he worked with me and he said, I'm going to read your book, I'm going to take those stories and I'm going to break it down into little stories. And then when you go and do a talk, you're going to pick 3 to 5 stories. That's all you're going to tell. And people can go away with 3 to 5 meaningful things instead of a load of codswallop that they can't remember when they get out the door. And that's the thing. I couldn't remember what was in Duncan's book, but I could remember how it made me feel. You'd walk away from one of them talks, not remembering what I said, but remembering how I made you feel. Now I'm trying to make a point of giving you really useful stuff in your life and making you feel good, right? So anyway, so he worked with me, and as well as reading the book, he interviewed me and did 2 big interviews over a few hours each to get more, to understand all of my stories. And when he got to the end of it, he was like, oh my God, Sarah, a tiny fraction of the stuff that you've got to impart is in that book. It's a tiny, weeny fraction. You've got all these amazing stories that entrepreneurs especially, I think, could learn so much from. So he wrote me this document, and the document had about 40 stories in it. And he said, there's only about 10 of them in your autobiography. He said, there's another book here. So I said, well, you structure it into a bloody book and we'll write the book. I haven't got time to do all that. So he went away and actually came back and he said, I think the concept, Sarah, is we do 52 and you do 1 a week. And it's supposed to be a year's worth of learning. So every week you read a story, and then off the back of that story, there's some key learnings, and then give them some homework so that they can have a think about what they can do to really take the learning from you and build in the self-development, right? I said, well, that's fine. We need Alex. Because I can't, there's no way I can get this down. So the task that we gave to Alex was I would tell her every story and she would cut it down to 6 minutes, because we concluded everybody's busy. And 6 minutes was a manageable amount of time for you to commit a week. So the whole thing is in your hands, is like a blueprint of self-development over the years, 52 stories from my life, but each one is only going to take you 6 minutes to read. And those of you that are entrepreneurs and really do want to take the learnings, I would urge you not to rush ahead and sit and read 20 chapters tonight, right? Is just do them 1 a week. Because if you read the story, really think about the learnings, and when I say homework, you don't have to fill in any forms. You just have to do a bit of self-reflection. And I think that'll really make a difference. The people that I kind of practiced on as I was writing this last year really found it massively helped with self-reflection. So This is a prime example of you give me an inch and I take a mile and I'll talk for England. It's one question and it's taken me 10 minutes to get you an answer. Hello, welcome to my world. We needed Alex here to translate, didn't we, into short, bite-sized chunks.
That's fine. So don't do what I did and just read the whole thing in 2 days.
Don't do this. Do not be this man. Right.
What I thought was interesting going through it is how you mix personal stories with stuff that, would you say it's like business principles that everyone should adopt? I think if there's one in there about making your customer your marketer, like customer advocacy and the power of that. And that is something I tell businesses all the time. If you've got great customers, that's your story. How did you mix the personal and those things that you would tell any business as an investor or an advisor?
That's really good. Oh, you did do your homework, didn't you? I'm impressed with this one. You should hire him again. Nobody's asked me that before. So I'll tell you something really interesting in my life. About 10 years ago, I hired someone to come and run my business. And I'd done the business running from there on in. And I hired this guy to come and run the business because I didn't think I was good enough to run that business. Because I'd graduated from university, started the business, and built up, and here I was sitting with a £20 million turnover business, 150 staff, thinking, Jesus, I don't know how to do this. No, you know, you didn't learn this in the textbooks at university, so therefore I can't know how to do it. You know, I've been trusting me gut up to now, and that's been a bit of fluke that's got me here, clearly. It's not skill, it must be fluke, so I'm not equipped to do this. And I hired this guy to come and run the business, and Jesus, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster because he didn't care about that business like I cared about it. And I remember it was around that time my sister rang me one day, and my brother-in-law had been on a course at work, and it was a management course, leadership course. And she said this leadership coach that he'd been working with was absolutely phenomenal. He didn't rate that sort of business training, but she'd been absolutely instrumental. She said, I think you need to work with her. So I randomly got hold of this woman, and she wasn't taking on any new clients, and I begged her. Like I just said, I just feel like I need you to tell me how I'm going to do this because I need to run my business and I don't know how to do it. And what she made me realise is I do know how to do it, but I didn't want to trust my gut because I didn't have a piece of paper that says my gut says it's right. And what she did over the course of the next 3 or 4 years is taught me a lot of the theories of management. And then she helped me understand how I could take that theory, but actually she'd say to me, and this is why you feel X, Y, and Z about this. And this is why you've struggled with this. And this is why you've learnt this. And as soon as I knew what those fancy theories were, I started trusting my gut. And now, I don't need to know the theories. Couldn't give a monkey's what the textbooks say because I trust my gut. But I needed her to take me through that process to get to that point of trusting my gut. So I guess a lot of what you're reading there, that's how I like to learn. I like to learn from stories. My favourite business book, other than this, is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I don't know if anybody's read it, but because it's a fable, it's a story. And I read that book, and I know it's a made-up story, but I read that book and I'm picturing my business and the people in my business as I'm reading that book and I'm connecting with it. It's like when I'm at a talk like this, listening to other people, they're talking about their experience, but I'm immediately in a parallel universe, imagining that within my business and where I've experienced it. And that's how I learn. And so all of this, it never, I don't want to sit and tell you theories. You don't need to know theories. But actually, I'm confident enough that the shit that's in there, sorry son, I shouldn't be swearing, the stuff that's in there that's come from my gut, I feel confident enough that is backed up with what I've learned and picked up. So now I feel confident enough to sit here and think, actually, yeah, these are my stories, and I'm confident enough that my stories are going to be really useful to you, so I'm going to put them in a book. And I guess that's the... So if you want theories, it's not for you, right? If you just want real life, here's how it happened to me, so that in the pages of that book you will get a little bit lost because you're thinking about your business while I'm talking about my stuff. That's exactly it. I think if you like me like that, you'll love it.
There you go.
That also was a bit short.
That's all right. You started young as an entrepreneur, and you mentioned the kind of things you read at the time, autobiographies and that kind of stuff. Is there advice you wish you'd had, looking back on it now? Like, this kind of book? Is there something you wish you'd been able to look to? And you say a lot of it's intuition, a lot of it's gut feel, a lot of it's learning from stories. Is there something you feel that you would have benefited from back then?
I'm sure a lot of you will resonate with this. Actually, 99% of it is just self-confidence and self-belief. And I didn't have it. And a lot of us don't have it. And I sit here now at the grand old age of 40. I feel like I've got bags of it. But I've only developed it, a lot of it, in the last 5 or 6 years. Before that, it was very much a fake it till you make it. I'll pretend I've got all the confidence, but really inside, I'm suffering massively from imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is something I talk about a lot and features a lot in that book. And I actually just feel really grateful that I've nailed this by 40, because some people could get to 50, 60, 70 and still not have got over the imposter syndrome. And so I think the big thing is, I really hope that when people read this, it gives you a little bit of that self-confidence. And also, just me having the confidence to stand up here and say, that was me, and be a little bit vulnerable. I think we don't see enough of that. I learned to be vulnerable when I did Strictly. You know, in all honesty, does anybody watches on Strictly? Right, okay, so here's the thing, right? I'd wanted to do Strictly my whole goddamn life. That was like, you know, there was 3 things I wanted to do, right? Write a book, Strictly was one of the other ones, right? And I was so desperate to do Strictly, and so when I got the call and I got the opportunity, I was on it, right? And I don't know if any of you remember, but I did that cha-cha-cha the first week. That disastrous cha-cha-cha, right? And so I spent 2 weeks, you get 2 weeks for your first dance, studying so bloody hard and focusing on the steps and where my footwork should be, and how in a cha-cha-cha you needed a perfectly straight leg and you had to throw your hip out when you did the New Yorker, and all, you know, I studied it to within an inch of its life, and I was after perfection, 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 right? And on the dress run, I sat and watched all 14 of the other contestants, and I did a recce, and I concluded, there's half of you are definitely better than me. And the other half, I can give you a damn good run for your money, right? And there was 5 of us doing cha-cha-chas that week, and I analysed everybody else, how straight their legs were, how their hip went out on the New York. I watched it all, right? And I was like, I've got the best cha-cha-cha, definitely, right? And then I danced 4th, and I got 17, rude, right? Clearly they weren't watching the technical performance, were they not, right? And I thought, oh, that's all right, because I know I'm about half as good. But that'll be about middle of the leaderboard, right? And then everybody came to dance, and they all got their scores, and the leaderboard stretched and stretched and stretched, and I was still at the bottom. And at the end of that night, I came out, and I was right bottom of the leaderboard, front page of the papers next day, Bookie's favourite to be out first. And I was devastated, and I didn't understand, because all I'd done was study really, really hard, and it was about the dancing, and I'd done everything Aliash told me from the dancing. And I spoke to my leadership coach, Kirsty. Not that she knows anything about dancing, but I was so utterly distraught. I knew if I talked to my mum, I'd just cry, and I couldn't cry any more than I'd been crying all night. I was really sad. It was when I was at about 3 o'clock in the morning trying to hold me on and be like, no, I don't care what I don't mind. And Aliash with his puppy dog eyes. By the way, he is absolutely as gorgeous as he looks in real life. And with his big puppy dog eyes, he just looked at us and he said, partner, it broke my heart tonight to see how upset you were. Oh, and honestly, I thought I'd kept it from everybody. I thought I'd kept up this show, and he'd seen right through me like a pane of glass, as that man can do, right? And it broke my heart. So, you know, I talked to Kirsty, and she made us go and watch it back. And I watched it back, and the penny just dropped for us. And I looked at myself on stage, and I saw exactly what it was, right? There was this bit in the middle of the dance where you had to, because it's a Latin dance, you know, and you have to do this bit where you put your arms up like this, and then you do this. Oh my God, I'm so sexy, right? And it was so far removed from my everyday life in business, and I felt so uncomfortable. But I did it because Aliash told us, but every fibre of me being was saying, I do not feel sexy at all, and I am massively uncomfortable, right? And I think that was the problem. I was trying to be a businesswoman with all of my armour around us, because you never ever saw vulnerable Sarah. Cry. I won't even cry in front of my husband. There is no place in my life for vulnerability. There never had been, and nobody ever saw it. So there was Sarah with the armour on that she has on. And that Sarah got up and did a cha-cha-cha, feeling stupid, but doing it because that's what it said. And you could see that. And I realised that's what the judges are seeing. They're not judging you based on your dancing ability. They're judging you based on your entertainment. And Judy Love got out there and done a cha-cha-cha, and she'd wiggled that booty and she didn't care. And she'd done an amazing job and entertained the audience, and they'd scored her as such, right? And I realised that I had to get over this vulnerability thing. Otherwise, I was never, ever going to make it. And this big opportunity that I've waited all my life for was going to be over in a heartbeat, and I was going to waste it. And now, thankfully, the next week wasn't Latin. The next week I got to do ballroom, where nobody has to show off or be sexy. You just have to be elegant. And you have to nail that footwork, and you have to drive through your standing leg. This is your foxtrot train I was talking about. You drive through that standing leg, and I nailed all of the technique, and I was perfectly elegant, and I worked on my frame and everything. And I made Strictly History as the only person who went from the very bottom of the leaderboard to the very top of the leaderboard and doubled their scores. Knowing that I had to come back for a Latin dance again the next week. But I learnt that really important lesson of, if I can't be vulnerable, no one's going to connect with me. And if people aren't going to connect with me, they're never going to vote for me. And I think that was the journey that you all saw me go on over those 9 weeks, was a bit of a journey of self-discovery on how to be vulnerable in front of 10 million people on a Saturday night on primetime TV. And it was such an amazing lesson that I learned in my everyday life. So I think I never learned that in my 20s. I never learned that in, my early 30s. And that is the one thing, but no book could have ever taught me that. No. I think it's just those real life experiences you've got to have.
Yeah, you've got to go through it. Yeah. How on earth, by the way, did you manage to keep up the dance? Because my wife and I watched Strictly, and then we were like, how does she run a business while doing the dance training? Did you sleep? What did you do?
I look back now, and I don't know how I did it. I mean, at the time, so I was managing the business, and we were a £35 million business, 250 staff working across 3 time zones, 2 offices. I've got 2 young kids. My boys are 8 and 11 now, so they were like 5 and 8 at the time. My investment portfolio then had about 20 businesses in it that I was looking after, and I was actually doing quite a bit of presenting on the BBC. I was doing Morning Live a few mornings as well. And I look and I just think, how the hell did I fit 50 or 60 hours of dancing a week in? And train, because I was up and down to London like a yo-yo. I used to have to go, because I wanted to come home and be with the family through the week, and back down to London for the shows. So I had all the travel. It was 4.5 hours travel each way to contend with. And I just did it. I just made it work. And I was so incredibly jealous of the contestants who were in a place in their life, because the BBC offered to just get us a flat in London. So you could just drop your whole life, move to London, they'd pay for you to be in London full time, and you could train 14, 16 hours a day if you wanted. And that's what a lot of them did. Certainly the ones that made it through to the final and that. And I was so envious. I would have loved to have done that. But I had responsibilities as a mother, as a business owner, as an investment partner. I didn't want to let the BBC down, so I was juggling all of this. And so how I did it was, I could give Aliash 6 hours a day. I gave him from 6 o'clock till midday every day. And poor lad didn't know there was 2 6 o'clocks in the day. That came as a shock to the system. And that's I could only do 6 hours, and I just made 6 hours a day work, and I just fit the rest of my life around it. I can remember in the first week sitting at, I think it was 8 o'clock on a night, with me feet in a bucket of ice under the tables. I had my joggy bottoms, a bucket of ice underneath the table, with a suit jacket on, doing a board meeting in America. Thinking, how is this my life? How is this my actual life? If they could see what was on the rest of the camera now, nobody would ever believe it. And I sat with my feet in that bucket of water for an hour. I used to have me, I can remember, because also women, we have it tougher than blokes, right? Aliash, all I used to have to do every week was go for a haircut. It's the only thing. I needed to have my nails done. I was in so much pain. The poor massage lady used to have to come round and rub my feet twice a week, just so that I could keep standing up, right? And I can remember one week I was doing this big fiery dance, so the nails girl, obviously this was her chance to get a nail scene on national TV, wanted to paint fire onto my nails. And I was like, I haven't got time for that, love. And then the massage lady saying to us, your legs are in pieces and your back, because it was a ballroom week, I needed to do my frame. She said, I need you on that table for a good 20 minutes at least to do it. So I'm laid on the table. She's massaging the back of my neck while this girl's painting fire on my nails. I'm almost crying, I'm in that much pain. Simon's talking to us about what's going on in business. I've got my face in the little ring, answering him through the whole... Just thinking, and it's 10:30 at night, because that's the only time I can fit it in, and I'm just thinking, what the hell? But honestly, if I ever think I'm busy now, I'll look back on that time and think, this is not busy. This is not busy.
Raises the bar a bit. Just back to just had to ask that because I was fascinated about how you did it all. Back to the book a little bit and who this is targeted at. I think a lot about small businesses. Like a lot of the work we do is targeting small businesses at work. And they're the kind of lifeblood of the UK economy. I think small business is like, 99% of the economy or something like that. But it's really hard to start one. It's really hard to succeed in one and to keep one going. And I think that keeps people from like making the leap. And thinking of all the would-be entrepreneurs in the room, what do you say to someone who's thinking of making the leap? Are you following a passion? Are you following a great idea? Are you spotting a gap in the market that you can fill? I wonder what that spur is. Obviously, for you, what was it? Was it passion at the time? Was it something you saw that you could fill?
So I'll be really honest, and it might not be the popular thing that everybody wants to hear, but sometimes you need to. Not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. It's bloody hard work. It's bloody hard work. And I remember when I first had the bairns, we're down south now, when I first had my children, I forget I have to translate down here. And then you're going to tell me that you're like in the Midlands or something, aren't you? Whereas that's all right then, yeah. I sometimes come to like Manchester and they say they're up north. I was like, this is not up north, love.
No, we're very south here.
You're very south.
south.
I'm not even sure where I am, to be honest. I just know I got in a car and went to sleep and I woke up and I'm in Tring. It's my first time ever. Anyway, I digressed. So anyway, when I had the bairns, I remember talking to some of the mums at the mother and baby group, and this was long before I'd done like Dragon's Den, so nobody really knew who I was or what I did or anything. And I never used to like to say I do TV, because I only did shop and telly, which is hardly glamorous, right? So I just used to say I'm in sales, run my own business and I'm in sales. And as soon as people know you run your own business, they're like, oh my God, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. It must be great, you know, to work your own hours, to go and do the school run when you feel like it, to be able to knock off if you want to have coffee and cake with your friends. You're so lucky. And I just think, Jesus, wept you'd never cut it, right? And I just, all I know is, and you're laughing, those of you that are entrepreneurs in the room, have got your own businesses, I bet you get it all the time, people telling you how lucky you are. Yeah, they have never, don't know they're born with their job as easy as it is in comparison. But I always say, so I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I knew that I would make it as an entrepreneur, because I understand that being an entrepreneur is not a career choice. You don't choose to do that as a job. It's a lifestyle choice. And I knew that because I grew up with my mum and dad running our own small business. And we had a little business. They had the wallpaper and paint shop in our village. Actually, my dad did all sorts of different businesses, right? Like he's had 40 different businesses in his life, I think. Always flitting from one thing to the next. But proper entrepreneur, proper Del boy, my dad. Entrepreneur through and through. And so because I saw that lifestyle, there was no line where our family business finished and our life started. It all just merged into one. You know, and I would think nothing of it if a decorator would come and knock on our door at 10 o'clock at night because they wanted a tin of paint mixing. And my mum used to put a dressing gown on, go and open the shop up and mix them a tin of paint. Because that's what we did. Like, you wouldn't think of saying no. You wouldn't say no to a customer. Like, you just don't. You do anything to make the business a success. And because I grew up in that environment, I knew that I was also prepared to do what they did. I was prepared to make my business my life and all of the sacrifices that come with it, but also all of the great stuff that comes with it. You know, my dad instilled in me, kid, you don't work that hard and then do it for somebody else. If you're prepared to work that hard, you do it for yourself, right? And I think that really, really stuck with me. And so I went off to university to learn management, and it was probably the start of that feeling that I had all them years later that I said the management coach had to knock out of me, because I felt like I needed to go and learn. I need to have a bit of paper and learn what the textbook said so that I could come back home and tell me, Dad, this is how you're supposed to run a business in the 21st century. You know, that's how you have been doing it all them years, but this is how we do it nowadays. And so that was my plan, and I went off to university and I did one of those degrees where you do a couple of years studying, then you go out and work for a year and you come back and study for a year. And in my year out, I worked for this tiny little craft company She definitely wasn't cut out to be an entrepreneur, I can tell you. You can read about her in the book. Glenda. So it's not what you take, it's not what you get given as an opportunity, though, it's what you take from it. That's one of the chapters. You can learn that from Glenda. So anyway, I went and I worked for that year, but it opened my eyes to this whole industry that I had no idea existed. You know, the craft industry. I did crafts as a little girl. You know, my mum did loads of crafts with me and my sister, but I didn't realise it was a multi-million-pound market at the level it was at. And my God, I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the customers, because the people who craft are so passionate about what they do. It's not a hobby, it's their life, and they love it. And I was like, they are way more exciting than painters and decorators. Why would I take over the family business when I could got all these ideas for businesses here? And I think my dad especially, both my parents, but especially my dad, had just instilled in me, if you believe it enough and you've got the drive and the passion and the dedication, you'll make it a success. So he instilled that in me. And I remember coming home being like, Dad, I've got all these ideas for this industry, and I just feel like there's all this opportunity. And it was when there was a big boom time in the industry as well. So little craft shops were opening up on every street corner every week, loads of opportunity. And I was like, Dad, I think I want to start a business in this industry. And he was like, go for it, pet. Go for it. And I think because I had that supportive environment, I know a lot of parents would be like, oh, no, you've got to go back and finish your last year at university. No, focus on your studies. Don't be focusing on that. No. Whereas my dad was like, if you think you can work hard on the business and you can not let yourself down in your studies, because I was on for first class honours, I'd worked bloody hard for 2 years, and he said, you do not let them studies suffer, but if you think you can do your studies and you also think you can build the business, do it as a side hustle. So I started the business as a side hustle in my last year of university, while I was determined to prove to everybody I was still going to get that first class honours degree. And I worked bloody hard at both of them. And I got to the end of the year, and not only did I have the first class honours degree, but I was the highest achieving student in the university management school. And also the business, the side hustle business, had become bigger than my mum and dad's wallpaper and paint shop that they'd been doing for 25 years. So I was like, here we go, we're in craft, and the rest is history.
That's interesting. I grew up in very similar circumstances. My parents had a carpet shop, and it was the same thing where you had like, someone would not come knocking, but I remember the whole house, until this day, he can't retire. He's 76, can't retire. You go around, you put a cup of tea down, and there's not a coffee table, it's just a stack of carpet samples all around the house. And it's exactly as you say. He was surprised when he talks to me that I get holiday. He's like, they let you take some time off then, do you? Like, yeah, it's in the contract. He's like, I can't believe it. What's the world coming to?
It's a way of life.
It is, it really is, and it becomes a lifestyle. With that in mind, I'll ask one more question, then we'll throw it open to the audience. I'm sure there's lots of questions. You've obviously got Crafter's Companion, but then through Dragon's Den and other investments, you are involved in a lot of businesses. If you were to look at the portfolio of businesses you're invested in, or you've been involved in, or you've given advice to, because obviously in Dragon's Den there are times where you back out, right?
Yeah.
Is there a Sara Davies kind of business? Is there a unifying thing that brings them together? Is there something that you could say, that is the kind of game I'm in?
So, yes. And I didn't realise this, and I had a penny drop moment. So what I do every year, and how I run my Dragon's Den portfolio, is every year we film in kind of May, June, July time. And then in around September, I hold a conference, and I have all of my existing businesses come along to the conference, and I have the new businesses that have just come through this year turn up so that they can mingle with the businesses that I've got. Because a lot of them, say I invest in 12 businesses in a year, some of them will decide, actually, I don't want to go through with the investment. I like them to get to understand what I'm like, what working with me would look like, so that they can decide, do I really want to do this? Is this really what I've signed up for? And we also do the due diligence. So I invite all of them to come along to the conference, and then we can decide from there, is this the right thing to go forward? And actually, doing the conference helps seal the deal for us. A lot more of my investments go through, and I think they get to really speak with my other investments and see how hands-on I am. Anyway, I don't know if any of you saw a few years ago, I invested in a business called Scoff Paper, and it was edible greetings cards for dogs, right? I'm the only dragon who doesn't have a goddamn dog. And when those lift doors opened and this crazy dog lady came out, right? And she gave us a greetings card to feed to her dog. I'm sat here thinking, who does this? This is weird, right? While all the other dragons are like, oh yeah, we'll taste this, this is great. But it just shows she was a fantastic entrepreneur. She impressed me so much. Even though it was not a sector I had any experience of, or even personal direct experience, I still totally loved the idea of what she was doing, okay? Anyway, conference. She turns up to the conference a few months later, and so they all arrive at like brunch, and then they have a bit of a brunch together before we go into the first session. And I checked, she looked a little bit quiet when she first arrived, so I just checked in with her after the lunch before we went into the first seminar. And I took her to one side and I said, oh, Gemma, how are you feeling? And she said, I'll be really honest, Sarah, I haven't slept the last couple of nights because I was so nervous about coming. And then I've got here and I've met everybody and I've thought, why the hell am I so nervous? What was the problem? I've met everybody and everybody's lovely. But then I thought, well, of course they're lovely because you picked them. Of all the businesses you could invest in, you picked the lovely ones because you wouldn't want to work with people who aren't lovely. Like, that's why I think you picked me. So I've had this realisation and now I'm thinking, why the hell have I been worrying all these nights? And it really hit home for us of, yeah, I've invested in the people. So there's not a type of business. I've got franchise businesses. I've got businesses in industries I've never even heard of. I've done everything from edible greetings cards for dogs to psychic mediums. I mean, I didn't believe in any of that sort of stuff before I met Jane. But it's the people. I invest in the people. And when you look at them all, when you get them all in a room together, you can feel what's the same about them. And also, you'll see if there's one stands out like a sore thumb. And I don't know if I should say this, but a couple of years ago at one of the conferences, it was when Gary Neville had been in as a guest dragon. And he'd done an investment, and I'd ended up sharing the investment with him because I felt like he needed someone to do that mentoring with him. And she was the sort of person who wasn't really that sort of fit for the sort of people I'd mentor and I'd have within my mix. But brilliant business, and also bloody love Gary Neville. So I was totally all in for being in business with Gary Neville, if I'm honest. So it was a good business, a good entrepreneur, and I was in business with Gary Neville. I'm in, right? Anyway, she wasn't convinced. She'd ended up giving away twice as much equity as she'd come in. She'd want to do 5% and she'd gone away 10% or something like that. It might have been 10% each. So she ended up backing out of the deal, and she tried to negotiate hard, and I remember trying really hard to make it work and whatnot, and it just didn't. And I remember reflecting back on the conference, and she kind of stuck out a little bit like a sore thumb. She wasn't wired like everybody else in the room. And what I realise is, and you'll find this in my book, I like to give. I find the more I put out into the universe, the more the universe brings us back in spades, right? And I don't know that that's a psychic thing like Jane's taught me it is, or whether that's just karma, right? But I just know that the more I seem to give in my life, the more I get back in spades. And when I'd run these entrepreneurial retreats for my investments, I encourage them all to do the same. And actually, I'm just a facilitator. You know, so I stand up at the front here and I have a few bits to say, but then they'll all start helping each other. And they'll all go out of their way, because they're in non-competing industries, to build each other's businesses. And that's what makes my group of investments successful, how they help each other, not just what they get from me. And I think that is the thing that kind of binds us all together. And that is something that you just get a sense from people. I know when an investment walks through them, when they walk through the lift doors, I know within about 3 minutes if I'm going to make an offer. I mean, I've got to make the TV show fun, you know, I've got to make them sweat. But I know straight away. And now you'll watch it a little bit differently. It's on tonight, isn't it?
It's on now, you're in two places at once.
I'm in two places at once. You'll go home and watch us on catch up, and you'll see, because you'll be looking for that little twinkle in my eye, and I'm sure you'll start playing the game with yourself as to, is she going to invest it, yeah? And you'll know, because you know me now, and you kind of know what I'm looking for, and you just get a feel of if they're my sort of person. And when you look at them all in a room, you're kind of like, oh yeah, they're Sarah's people.
You do find your tribe, don't you? In
You
business?
find your tribe. Find your tribe and love them hard. That is my mantra in all walks of life, not just in business.
I think we should. Ben's got up, and I don't think he's going to sing a song, so I think that must be. It's going to go around the audience. So have we got some questions from the floor? I'm sure we've got a few.
Well, yeah.
I'll let Ben find.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I loved it. I think you can see, like, as much
Yeah.
as you all came here to listen to me, right, I will go away having had a better night than what you've all had, because it's when I see how much people, like, get from it, I'm like, oh, and it just spurs us on to want to keep talking.
Yeah, no, my head's buzzing with ideas, and there's so many questions I could ask you, but I'm going to pick one. I'm really interested in what you think about, like, the concept of balance, because I think we're really oversold the idea that you can have a lot of balance in life, and you're obviously someone that's doing it all. So what do you think about balance?
What a good question. Yeah, I'm terrible at balance. I want to do everything all the time, and I'm learning that I'm not 25 anymore. You know, I'm not old. I'm 40. But like I used to fly to the States every 3 weeks and just do a red eye out there, 2 days red eye back, and then just hit the ground running. And I can't do that sort of stuff anymore, but I still try. And I want to be all things to all people, and I don't want to let anybody down. I want to do all the stuff I love. So, for example, you know, I've just stepped back from doing Dragon's Den for this year. It's not a permanent thing, it's for this year, because something had to give in my life. And I'm utterly distraught about it, because I bloody love that show. I love it so much, and I really want to do it. But I'm just going to kill myself trying to do absolutely everything. But it's not that I'm thinking, oh, great, there's 17 days back in my life, I'm going to go and have a spa day. You know I won't. I'll just fill it with something else. But for me, balance is a break from the other stuff. So, for example, I've got my TV career now, as well as my business that I run. And so I take days off work to go and present on Morning Live. I mean, the other presenters find this fascinating, that for them, that's their job. And I'm actually taking a day off work to go and present on TV. And it's not, that's my hobby, that's what I do for fun. But because that's totally different from my day job, that gives my brain a rest. My body doesn't need the rest. That I think I'm still only 40, I don't need the rest, but my brain needs the rest. And it doesn't mean it has to stop. I can't think of anything worse than lying on the couch on Saturday afternoon and doing nothing. Because if I do that, I'll just feel so riddled with guilt that I'm letting 10 other people down for things that I could have been doing in that time, that I won't enjoy the time. But I can go out and take the kids to soft play and, you know, be that mum that's the fun mum and hanging out with the other mum. Even though that doesn't feel like a break to most other people, that's a break to me, because it's a break from something different. So I think you've got to just look at what balance means for you. A lot of my friends think I'm crazy and they don't subscribe to this sort of same setup, and they need to have a Saturday afternoon lying on the couch. And that might be how they find their balance. But I think it's do what works for you. You know, and that's why I don't ever like to write I would never want to write a self-help book on this is how it works for me, because just because it works for me doesn't mean it works for you. And if I'm being a good coach, when I'm coaching my other businesses and investments, I don't try and inflict my way of doing something on them. I try and help them get to their way. And balance is a great one. What does balance look like in your life, and how can I help you make peace with that, instead of trying to inflict on you what the balance is in my life?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for taking the time out tonight to see everyone. My question is, how does one know the difference between trusting the process and or being an ostrich when the writing's on the wall?
Good one. Do you know what? In that moment, you'll know. And I can think of many situations in my life when I've known, but I haven't wanted to believe that. And so I've kept chasing something. And a great example I can give you is we had a CEO in the US, and he was a great guy. He was my first ever employee in the US, and he built the business with me. And he worked so hard, and he gave me his life. He really did, and he became a good friend and almost like part of the family. And I remember the point at which our board in the UK started to question, is he the guy who can get us to the next level of growth in the business? And they were questioning it. And I remember trying to defend him, saying, well, you know, he might be, he could do this. And if I look back in that moment, I knew he wasn't, but I didn't want to believe it. Because in admitting that he wasn't, it meant that I was either going to have to exit him from the business or do what they very successfully did in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and just sidestep them and put somebody else in, which I tried to do and didn't really work. But either way, it also felt like I'd failed, because in my head, if I couldn't make him what the business needed, yet he was so willing to learn and so keen and so desperate to please and had given me his life, then that I'd let him down if I couldn't make him into what the business needed. Therefore, it was my fault. So I felt guilty, I felt like I'd failed, and I didn't take action. I didn't take action, even though I can reflect now and say that I knew he wasn't right. And you know what? The price that the business paid for that was monumental. And I think whenever I talk to people and they're trying to make a decision about something, I always challenge them and I say, you actually know what the right decision is. You know it deep down. It's whether or not you let yourself believe it and whether or not you're brave enough to take action on it, even if that action hurts. So, yeah, hope that's helpful.
Hello, thank you very much. Just a quick question based on the book. The main driver for you obviously isn't to make money off the books, but
you'll never get rich being an author, mate. Yeah, trust me. We had this discussion earlier. It's definitely a passion project.
That is my question. In terms of the business case of writing a book, how much do you make per book, for example, and how many do you expect? So is it just purely a passion project that makes no money, or is there any money to be made in it, kind of thing?
So one of my friends, one of the other mums from school, is an author, and one of her books recently went viral on TikTok, and she just bought a £2 million house that she calls the Bookshop house, right? So you can absolutely make a lot of money from being an author. I would say most of the authors that I know, and certainly from my own experience, it's they have a totally different motivation for doing this. And for me, it's the opportunity cost. So the time that I took out of my life to write that book, if I was doing it to earn money, I could have earned shit tons more money doing something else in that time, right? However, I'm in the very privileged position whereby the decisions I make in my life, I don't have to make on a financial basis. I'm more driven by doing things that fill my cup up. If I was only doing things that made me more money, I would do nothing else other than focus on my own business. Because in my business, I'm in control of turning £1 into £10. And I know that I can do that and do it really, really well. So why would you ever take time out? If you had £500,000 a year spare, why would you spend it on Dragon's Den, knowing that if 10 businesses you invest in, the statistics say 7 out of them are going to fail, 2 of them you might get your money back on, potentially 1 of them might work, right? When you could actually invest that £500,000 in your own business and turn it into a hell of a lot more money, right? But I can't get in my own business the personal fulfillment that I get from doing Dragon's Den. So I kept going back year after year after year because my cup overfloweth from what I get out of giving them other people that little bit of me and playing a part in somebody else's story. And it's the same with the book. You know, when people come up to me and say things to me about having read my autobiography, like I say about Duncan Bannatyne had a huge impact on my career, and he'd never even met me. And if I think I could do that for even just a few dozen people, I'll sleep better at night knowing that my cup's a little bit fuller. So for me, that's the kind of motivation on writing books. But trust me, most authors you meet will tell you, they do it for the love of the books and for what they can pass on, definitely not for the money they're going to make.
No, it's not a particularly good get-rich-quick scheme.
No, no. But you never know. If you all tell 1 million friends each to buy this book, I should be all right.
There's a chat.
I watched Dragon's Den the other week, and you and Peter Jones were vying for whatever the business was, and Peter Jones's line was something about you being a deluded woman. Do you remember the line?
I know the one. Good wash day. She was the lady who sold the towels.
And she automatically went for you because she was very unhappy with his line. I think you and Peter, are you good?
Oh, me and Peter are always good. Always good by the time I've had a couple of glasses of wine in the bar afterwards.
Sara, just in terms of Dragon's Den, when you look at people's pitches, are there sort of criteria in your head you're thinking about in terms of whether it's good or bad? And on that note, what would you say constitutes a good idea and what constitutes a bad idea?
Okay, so how I do it, I've got a little system, and I have my book in front of us, and you'll know now when you watch us writing in the book, right? So when they come in and they're doing their pitch, I write their names on the right-hand side at the top, how much money they're asking for in the top right-hand corner for what percent, and then if I can do the calculation, I'll work out what they've valued at their business at. Sometimes it's a really obscure number and I can't work it out, but you know, if it's 10% for £1 million, I'm like, yep, can do the math there. So I'll work all that out, and then as they're going, I'll write down all the interesting facts about their business on the right and all the questions I could potentially ask them on the left. And then as other people ask the questions, I tick them off, right? But like I said, I've generally made my mind up on that business within about 3 minutes of them coming in. So if I've decided you, as a person, as an individual, as somebody that I'm prepared to put my time into because I think I will enjoy working with you, then all I'm thinking of is, why would I not invest in your business? What are all the things that could be wrong with this? Because sometimes, and it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, because the BBC vet these and make sure they only put good businesses in front of us. So I'm working on the business basis of, you've got a decent business, and I like you, so I need to have a reason why not to invest now. And they are all my why not. You know, I need to know that every one of them questions you've answered comfortably, so there's no reason why when I ring my husband tonight and tell him I've just spent another 50 grand with the kids' inheritance, sweetheart, and I'm going to have to justify to him why it was a good spend, I've got the answers as to why that is. But it's always, without exception, always about the people. Have they got the drive, the energy, the ambition that I know it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur? And if they haven't, I don't want to know. But if they have got those three things, I'm all over you like a rash.
More questions? From down here.
Thank you. I think this is related to the similar question, but apart from being a lovely business owner, what are the positive things and maybe the sort of pain points that would make a business investable for you? So how would you add value?
Yeah, so for me, I do love product businesses. I'm more of a product business than a service business, just because that's my world and that's what I know. And I know better how to market products than I feel like I do with services. And if it's something you can put on shopping TV, or even if it's not that you can put it on shopping TV, but the principles that you learn from shopping TV, I can help instill in my entrepreneurs, that is definitely something that gets it for me. And then as soon as we do venture into them territories, I want to know about your intellectual property. And I feel like I've really established myself in the den as being the IP kind of girl. So you don't see this because they always cut it out. But if we ever get somebody talking about their patent, they nearly always have to have their patent in the den with them. And so if we want to challenge them on anything to do with their patent, they'll actually just produce the paperwork. And every time, whoever's asked for it, they just go, give it to Sara. Because I know me shit. You know, I've successfully defended one of our patents 6 times now, and I understand that patent law inside out, back to front. So anything around intellectual property, protecting your ideas, bringing a product business to market, and also another area I thought I was always really strong compared to the other dragons was taking your business internationally over to the States, something I'd had a lot of general experience. If it's something I've had experience in my life, then I'm happy to share that experience. I'm also the first one whereby it could be a brilliant business and something that could make fantastic money, but if it's not an area that I'm an expert in, and I actually can sense that there's other dragons here who are interested, who this is their area of expertise, I'm not frightened to say, do you know what, I would love to invest in your business, but you're probably going to get a better offer that's going to be more valuable to you than I am. And I think I would never have dared say that in my first year. Whereas now I've got enough confidence in myself that I will say that, and I'll just say there are other people here better suited to you than I am, so I'm going to let them have that investment and I'm out. So, yeah.
Let's do one of the virtual ones, and then there's a question at the back. Anonymous attendee, how do you know when to take your side hustle and make it your full-time job?
Great question. Hi, virtual people. I don't know which camera you're in. Right, so I am a big advocate for start off with a side hustle, right? And I'm doing a load of work at the moment with Avon, so helping women especially who want to build their businesses, who don't know where to start, how to build a side hustle Avon business, and also travel counsellors, people who are, are really passionate about travel, want to build their own business. So they want to be People who want to be in control of their own destiny, they want to work their own hours, they want all the benefits that come with running their own business, but they don't know where to start in terms of, I haven't got a product, I don't know how to market it, I need some support. You've got all the benefits of being self-employed, but also all the benefits that come with being part of a company as well. But a big leap for people is starting off and having that as a side hustle. And as you say, when do you take the leap of faith? And for all I'm someone who has a very unhealthy relationship with risk, let's just say, I don't see it as risk. I just see it as if it's more risky, then I'm just going to have to work a little bit harder to make sure that it's not a problem. But I always say to people, if you're not as crazy as I am like that, you start that as a side hustle. If you are prepared to work, and I don't see any reason why you couldn't, if you have a job and you're working 40 hours a week and you're building your side hustle to the point whereby you're working 40 hours a week as well, right? And that side hustle's then taking more, earning you more than what your job is, then you know you can make that leap. These people who say to us, well, yes, I work my full-time job and I do a side hustle 10 hours a week and I'm going to quit my full-time job to build the side hustle, that's risk. There's enough hours in the day, there's enough hours in the week that if you're really driven enough, you can put more hours into it and build it. And I always say if you can do that, I mean, even better when you see people where they come into business and they can drop their hours at work to part-time before they take that leap and can step it up that way. But with your own business, you've got to be prepared to put the hours in, you've got to be prepared to put the work in. So if you are prepared to do that and build your side hustle, you'll know yourself that that's going to work. But if you're running your side hustle 40 hours a week and you're not making as much as what you are doing your job, stick to the day job.
Hi, how are you?
Tremendous. Good. Tremendous, because I slept in the car journey that got me the train.
My question sort of leads on from that last one, actually. So I'm 40 in April, and I'm attempting to launch a brand/product. And I think at the moment I'm just having a lot of the imposter syndrome that you sort of talk about, because I think a lot of the people I look at and the podcasts I listen to feel like you and have had that kind of vision from very young. And whilst again, to what your dad was saying about, I've always felt like I've worked really, really hard in every job that I've done. So in the back of my mind, I've said the same. I'm like, why don't I do that for myself? But I think, I don't know, I feel like I might be coming to all of this a bit late. And do you think that someone like me, who's got 2 young kids and is nearly 40 and doesn't have loads of experience, can still succeed in this? And I know like I say, I'm having this imposter syndrome at the moment. And I quit my job last year to kind of continue with this side hustle and turn it into a thing. So I've got the passion for it, but there's this doubt that I'm not someone like you who has bundles of confidence. Like, I'm so nervous now talking. The idea of doing what you're doing is terrifying.
So I want to come storming down there and give you a shake. Is what I really want to do. And this might be a little bit of a slap around the face, but maybe it's what you need, right? If you keep telling yourself that narrative, you won't succeed. You won't succeed. 40 is no age at all. Absolutely no age at all. Like, if you're in the situation whereby you've been able to, you already have been able to quit your job to go and run at this, there is no reason why you won't succeed. You've actually got more to give than I had starting the business at 21, because you've got 20 years of experience more than what I have. I've never known people doubt themselves because they're too old to do it at 40. I've known people go the other way and think, well, at 20-year-old, have I got enough experience to succeed? But you know what it is? You will be your own worst enemy. You've got to believe it yourself. And I think it's it's that whole thing. I read something the other day of, if you tell yourself it enough, you'll believe it. And if you let yourself have them negative thoughts in your head, then you will never believe that you can do it, which means you'll never push yourself out of that comfort zone where it is really uncomfortable to be, which is where you need to succeed. And I think the best thing that I could advise that you could do is go and surround yourself with the right people, right? So if I draw a comparison in my life, I can remember when I first had the Bairns and I went to all these mother and baby groups, and a lot of the women were talking and they were all going back to work. Before they go back to work, and I went back to work when the kids were 3 months old, albeit just part-time, and they didn't. And some of them actually never went back to work. Some of them gave up work completely to look after the kids. And I felt wholly inadequate as a mother being around them people, because I felt selfish that I'd chosen to put my career. We could afford for me to have given up work and brought up them kids and been a stay-at-home mum, but I had selfishly chosen to continue to pursue a career whilst putting my kids in part-time childcare, and I put my personal needs ahead of my family's needs, and I felt riddled with guilt for doing that. And the more time I spent around those other women who had chosen to be stay-at-home mums, the more inadequate that I felt and the more I questioned myself. And now, when my kids have got to school, I've chosen to make a different group of friends with the mum friends. And like I said, there's the woman who's an author, and there's another one who's a civil engineer, and another one who's got a really high-powered job. These are women who have fantastic careers but are brilliant mums. And we know we're brilliant mums because we keep telling each other that we're goddamn brilliant mums, right? Nobody's going to tell us otherwise. None of them other people are going to make us feel bad. And I've surrounded myself with that tribe. And when I spend time with them, I come away with a really full-up cup thinking, I've got this. I've got this. I'm doing great in my career and I'm a brilliant mum. Whereas when I spent time with them others, I just thought I'm inadequate at what I'm doing. And I think you just need to get yourself surrounded with some amazing other business people. And read the book, and you'll realise there's nothing special about me. If I can do it, you can do it. You know, I didn't have anything that you haven't got. You've got 20 years more experience than what I had. So actually, you're more likely to succeed than I was at 20-year-old. And I still went and did it. And then go and join a couple of entrepreneurial groups. There's loads of groups out there. There's virtual groups on Facebook and Instagram, and then there's groups that organise, you know, that people organise meetups of entrepreneurs. Surround yourself, find your tribe, surround yourself with people who are going to make you feel like you can do it. Then you'll take the leap. Because there's nothing you've told me that suggests to me you aren't going to succeed. And certainly, being 39 is not a reason to not succeed. There's still so much in my life that I want to achieve, and I'm a year after you. You know, you've got a good year on me. So go and do it, because the only person that'll ever hold you back will be you.
I reckon that is a great place to end. Yeah? I think that's a fantastic place to end. It's been
I would have stayed all night and kept talking. So you know, they wound me up.
I've got up to about a third of the questions I had, so it's been really good.
Welcome to my... Well, that's what happens when you hang out with me.
I think we've all learned a lot. It's been a really good, fun event. Really interesting things to say. So thank you very much for giving us your time. Happy publication day again. The book is out today.
This is actually the day it's out.
Yeah.
This is my publication event. You were here on the day.
And books are on sale at the back. And over to Ben.
A quick word of thanks to Jamie Fewery for asking the questions. So Sara is going to be out in the foyer. Alison's at the bookshop. If any of you still want to get the book, there's lots of you have already got it. What I will say is, so many of you that are signing, do not download your life story and your business plans to Sara. And in this opportunity here, we obviously want to keep it moving. So get you signed. It's only fair. I don't know why you're laughing over there. But thank you anyway once more. And thank you to Sara Davies.